stop shouting. I'm hungover. You don't understand, guys. They found me again collapsed in Nissi Beach in Ayia Napa. I'm like this. I wake up and there's this couple standing over me. They wake me up. They take me home. They make me a cup of tea. And then the woman corners me in the kitchen and says, you know, we did it. We got it on behind my husband's back. It's news to me, hun. Hear no evil, speak no evil. If I can't remember it, it didn't happen. I just hope I gave her some satisfaction. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I am Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends, wives, and especially your boyfriends and your husbands. And another warm welcome to yet another DCU Daily. And a warmer welcome to Sunday's edition of the DCU Daily. You can follow me on X, Twitter, at Movies TV Mad, Instagram, Threads, at Movies TV Mad, X, TikTok, Mad, Mickey's World, and Snapchat, BeamOut60. I've got 400 followers on there now. I must be doing something right. I think we all know what it is. Anyway, let's get down to this. I want to read you an exchange between a fan and James Gunn on Threads. This is about the box office of Domestic Man, or as we all know him as Superman. Can I read it with these glasses on? Oh God, I'm going to take these glasses off. Anyway, James Gunn. People online keep saying that Superman needs to make 650 million to break even and be a success. Is that true, or would you say it's already a success? Huge fan of the movie, by the way. How stupid must you be as a fan to ask this question? You know what answer you're going to fucking get. It's clear what answer this person wants to get from Gunn. By the way, this is probably a WB bot-owned account or someone that Gunn has planted himself. It's a bit of a coincidence. It's quite convenient, isn't it, that this question is being asked right now, with everyone calling this film a financial disaster. We'll get into this after I've read Gunn's reply. Absolutely false. Anyone saying that doesn't have an understanding of the film business. Let me repeat that. Absolutely false. Anyone saying that doesn't have an understanding of the film business. James, you don't need to have understanding of the film business. I do. I grew up with my father who worked for a studio in Hollywood. I used to have to go to work with him at weekends when I wasn't going to school in LA because me and my brother used to scratch each other's eyes out. So my mum wanted us separated. So I went to work with my dad. I know everything about this business, right? I'm not even going to brag to you about the people that I've met. I don't do that. But I know this business. It's not about knowing the business, James. It's a simple case of fucking mathematics. Your studio claims that they gave you $225 million to make this movie. This studio claims that they gave you $130 million marketing fucking budget, right? So it's a simple case of mathematics, 225 million, right? So that's about what, 350 million, over 350 million. My maths ain't that great myself, by the way. But it's a simple case of mathematics. Then you have to pay the movie theatres as well for showing your movie, right? So you don't get all the money. So it's a simple case of mathematics. You have not broken even. You have not made a profit. And even if we say there is a profit in 600 million, right? Because people say, oh, well, look, 370 million, let's say, versus nearly 600 million. Yeah? So they've made a little bit more than what they spent. But as I say, they still have to pay the marketing companies and the theatres and whatever else they have to pay, right? Let alone the actors and, the crew and all of that. So even if we say they've made a slight profit, this is not what the fucking studio wanted. They're calling this film a success, right? Let me finish what he said. So, and we would be idiots to make a first in a franchise film that would need to make that much to be profitable. But you are idiots. Shall I tell you why? Because of what I just said. You do need to make more. You need to make a profit because you didn't make a profit for this movie because you spent too much fucking money. So you are idiots. You didn't have to spend 225 million to make the guy fly. Donna did because there was no CG. Practical effects are a lot more expensive than CGI. That's why they refused to go back to practical, right? Blue screens and having him, on a hoist. All that costs money. Now, Elias Salkind, whose father and he produced Superman 78, spent $100 million, or was it $100,000? No, it was $100 million just to make the man fly. Superman 78 at the time made over $300 million, right? Different times. And adjusting for inflation, that's over $1 billion today. Anyway, so you are idiots. You didn't have to spend 225 million and you didn't need a marketing budget of 125 million. And you probably spent more than that secretly and privately. So ultimately, you people just don't understand. You need to make 100 million or under the $100 million budgeted movies because your audience has shrunk. And that's not because of COVID. It's not because of strikes. It's because you stopped wanting to entertain people. Now, to be fair to Gunn, unlike a lot of directors today in that slop hole called Hollywood, at least he does try. I've got mixed opinions about Gunn as a writer-director. But in terms of trying to entertain an audience, he's still trying. Sometimes he succeeds, sometimes he fails. But I will give him that. And let's get something else absolutely clear. The near on $600 million that Superman is going to finish on, or 610 or whatever it does finish on, is very respectable. It's higher than all the Phase 4 and Phase 5 MCU movies. A lot higher. And the final remaining DCEU movies. In fact, Superman has brought in more money than most comic book movies in recent history. That's respectable. You can't sniff at a near-on $600 million return for any movie, blockbuster or any movie. It's respectable, but they spend too much damn money on the movie. So although the figure shouldn't be sniffed at, this movie has no profitability because they spent too much money on it. Not as much as Superman Returns. Singer spent $250 million, and God knows what they spent on the fucking marketing. Singer came from an independent film background. The first X-Men movie cost next to nothing to make. And I think the problem with Singer was, all of a sudden he had money and he got it wrong. He spent the money in the wrong areas. And people asked, how did Bryan Singer spend $250 million on Superman Returns? A film that barely has any action. Well, there's a Superman, there's a Return to Krypton sequence in Superman Returns, which was stunning, one of the best sequences ever shot for a Superman or a comic book movie, and they didn't even put it in the fucking movie. I mean, typical Warner Brothers, cutting the movie to bits because it would have been too long with that sequence, but it's a beautiful sequence and you can see it on your Blu-rays or DVDs or even on YouTube today. So that's the reason this movie's a flop. Two reasons. They spent too much damn money on it and they weren't able to bring in the 750s or the 850 millions. We spoke about that before. So it's not nonsense. You don't need a knowledge of the industry to know that Superman is a non-profit movie, and apparently Warner Brothers Discovery are now a non-profit company because publicly they're very happy with the box office return for Superman. But they can keep on crowing about the domestic box office because it is respectable. It's really, really good. But they didn't bring in enough money internationally, and its global return, because of the amount they spent, isn't good enough, and it's not high enough. That's another part of the problem. And it's interesting to analyse how comic book movies became the enemy. The excitement I felt watching Superman 78, Superman 2, Superman 3, even Superman 4, Superman Returns, the Snyderverse, some of the other DCEU movies as well, the first three phases of the MCU, Raimi's Spider-Man, of course, Singer's X-Men, Burton's Batman movies, Nolan's Batman movies. There was a love and an admiration for comic book movies, both from stands of comics and the general audience. But something went wrong. You can have too much of a good thing. Problem number one, right? The superhero fatigue. I don't think it's the fatigue that's the problem. Because Steven Spielberg, I think I mentioned this the other day, spoke about, how comic book movies would go out the same way as cowboy movies. What happened with Westerns was that they made some good fucking Western movies, and they became a trend and they became popular. So then they thought, let's not make an effort, let's just make crappy, shitty Western movies. They'll still watch them. People stopped watching them because they didn't have the quality they once did. And it's the same with comic book movies. From my personal opinion, the Snyderverse has quality. The Nolanverse has quality. The Spider-Man Raimiverse has quality. The Bryan Singer X-Men universe, not just the first two, have quality. And the MCU no longer has that quality. We've lost something in entertainment, in film, in storytelling, and in television today. And that's the character actor. Good characters with good character arcs in movies and television. And Victor Garber, someone you may have not heard of before, is a great case in point. I'm rewatching Alias right now, and he plays someone called Jack Bristow, who is Sydney Bristow's, the female lead's, father. He's very ruthless and notorious. You don't really know what he's going to do next. Now, I recognised him when I first watched this show from Titanic. He played the Titanic designer, Mr. Andrews, a really small role. But he gave that character so much charm. And there's no fan of Titanic who doesn't love Victor Garber's Mr. Andrews. That's what we're losing from films today. Every big film has that small character. Every big series has that character who wasn't supposed to be a big character, but the audience end up falling in love with them. Chloe Sullivan from Smallville, Chloe from 24. And there's movies like that as well. I don't think Otis' Superman 78 was supposed to be a big role, but we loved him. Same with Miss Tessmacher. We're losing quality actors because we are now watching the industry that wants to tick every box off. We must have a fat one, a thin one. They mustn't be too attractive. People must see themselves on the screen. Boring, 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 boring. We lost the ability to look at someone and say, oh, I wish that was us. I love that character. I'd love that character to be my friend. One of the things when I was watching Smallville, they felt like my friends. When I watched Friends, they felt like my friends. But now they're not appealing anymore because they're checking off everything but the entertainment value and the good character journeys that we used to consume. And that's another big problem with entertainment today. One final thing I'd like to say about how Gunn responded here as well is this. You are supposed to be a renowned modern day writer-director. You shouldn't even be commenting on this. And the reason that you are commenting is because of your ego and because you know your movie isn't profitable and that you're fighting for your career at DC Studios, the logo that isn't a studio, right? Let's get that clear yet again. He knows he's very close to losing his fucking job. They're not announcing new projects, right? Let me remind you again. Zaslav did not announce that Gunn was working on a super family movie. He's working on the next chapters of his super family movies, right? In other words, and he checked off like all the movies and TV shows have been greenlit. So Gunn is not Gunn claims he's working on a follow-up to Superman, as I keep on mentioning. He may be working on something, but has it been greenlit? Officially, Gunn's sequel hasn't even been greenlit, or follow-up. So that's interesting. That's something to look out for. But this, my friends, is utter fucking cope. Let me tell you this. As a director, to sit there saying, we don't have to make a lot of money. It's our first franchise movie. It's our launch. So we would be stupid to want to make a profit. Are you on drugs? Have you been on the mushrooms, mate? Because I know you Hollywood types do like to snort a bit. Are you being serious? You've just told a fan, even though he's a plant, and we all know that you didn't need to make a profit or a substantial one for your first movie. The company that you work for, Warner Brothers Discovery, is on the verge of bankruptcy. It's on its financial knees. This movie needed to save WB. This movie needed to make a profit, and it hasn't.